this is exciting for me, not just because I genuinely like this man, but he also agreed to appear in person, and he's an actual human being sitting in the show guest chair. The only man who could follow up Stephen A. Smith as the in-studio guest previous here on the program. We read his stuff on the MMQB and enjoying his podcast and his newsletter as well, which we'll get into. Andrew Brandt, former NFL executive, here in person. Good to see you, sir.
Great to be here, Rich. You know, my son moved out here a couple years ago. He's a music producer. He's doing great.
Mm-hmm.
I try to see him as often as I can, so I'm out here in West Hollywood. And, of course, that Supreme Court case came down yesterday. You reached out to me and, you can not only talk to me, but you can actually see me. So
sold.
It worked out. So here I am. Great to be with you. Great to actually do this. I mean,
I know you take it for granted.
Oh my God. Here we are live in person, no mask, and we're making this happen.
I know. Science is amazing. I'm glad that you are here. Let's get into that Supreme Court case again. And it was chewed up and spit out so much yesterday. You're now a day clear and having read everything, including Justice Kavanaugh's scathing concurrence, where he basically told the NCAA that not only did you lose here today 9-0, but be careful because the whole economic model of the NCAA could be illegal in antitrust law.
Yeah.
What do you make of how we might see college athletics change based on what happened yesterday?
Yeah, you know, Rich, for sports law nerds like me,
right.
It's a big day. We get giddy because there are not many of these cases. The last one was 3 years ago, as you know, when the court ruled sports betting can be implemented. New Jersey started it, and now 23 states have legalized sports betting. This one's about a real limited category of rights for student athletes, but as you mentioned, I'll talk about much bigger implications. So the actual case said the NCAA cannot restrict education-related benefits. What's that? Tutoring, study abroad, internships, science equipment, computers, that kind of, and musical instruments. That's kind of benign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, they opened that up. But as you said, the majority opinion, Justice Gorsuch, and of course the concurring opinion by Justice Kavanaugh, were very strident against the NCAA. They basically said, in so many words, bring on the next one, and we're going to open this up further, because the NCAA can't rely on these age-old definition of amateurism. It's just not going to last. So college athletes are going to have rights beyond this. It's just a matter of when. They said the NCAA is not above the law. You're not going to get an antitrust exemption. And yes, you have to allow more education-related benefits. You can't restrict that. As of today, schools can start giving out more science equipment, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the next case is going to be more. Because Brett Kavanaugh, who knew? He's the champion of student-athletes' rights.
Right.
And he says, you bring another case, we're going to strike it down, any NCAA rules. But let's be clear. This was not a pay-for-play case. Everyone's talking about you're going to pay student athletes, you're going to pay college football and basketball players. No.
Mm-hmm.
But the language was the NCAA is not a monopoly. You can't do this. And we're going to allow student athletes more rights in the next case, and the next case, and the next case.
So let's just break it down and brass tacks it.
Yeah.
Nick Saban signed a contract extension through when? Chris Brockman, was it again? 2027? 2029?
2029, I think.
2029. Will he have a player getting paid because that's the way things go in the NCAA by the time his contract is over?
I think so. I mean, the next 2 weeks, Rich, we haven't even talked about NIL, name, image, likeness, revenue for college athletes. It's coming. 6 states implemented already. It's going to start July 1. The NCAA is having an emergency meeting today, not related to the case yesterday, but about this name, image, likeness, because the floodgates are opening July 1. Other schools and states have to react to Florida, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama doing it. That's going to start July 1. In some form or fashion, student athletes can get endorsements. Again, it's not the schools paying, but you go down the street to Joe's Chevrolet.
Buddy Garrity.
Yeah,
the Buddy Garrity's of the world are
right.
From Friday Night Lights are going to basically say to the star, I guess here in California is one of those states.
Yeah.
Florida is one of those states. Like the UCLA quarterback here in town, we might see him for, some Chevrolet, some sort of Honda, some
and
sort of
then
what
Nick
have you.
Saban is going to tell the recruits, hey, you come here, freshman year, maybe you'll get $200,000 in NIL. By senior year, you're making $1 million in NIL.
Because we're Alabama.
Because that's happened already. And that's going to continue this arms race in college athletics for the big time. I think bottom line, Rich, in a number of years, we're going to see two tiers of college athletics. One tier that the NCAA controls and all the sports that we don't hear about much. And then big time college football, basketball. It's just going to be something else. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's not going to be NCAA legislated sports. It's going to be something else, more like pro sports, but still have some elements of no pay or limited pay, some controls over it.
Is it tied to academics in any way, shape, or form?
I think it will be, but I think the restrictions will be loosened big time. And I'm a little conflicted because my day job is running a program. I know you had Gabe here yesterday on the program. I run it at Villanova. We have 24 sports. One, who happened to win 2 of the last 5 NCAA basketball championships, makes money. So, yeah, I'm conflicted because people think college sports is 98% of the athletes aren't going pro. So in some ways, that's good. NIL can give those players some modest income.
Right.
And, the Trevor Lawrences and Zions, they're going to be fine. But maybe this helps out the vast majority of college athletes.
Andrew Brandt here in person on the Rich Eisen Show from the MMQB. And what do you do at Villanova? You run their sports law
there's
program?
Jeff Morad. He's out here. He owned the San Diego Padres. He started a sports business and law center at Villanova.
Okay.
I teach. I run the program. I'm executive director there.
Former front office executive of the Green Bay Packers, and we're going to hit all that here as you're here for the rest of the hour on the Rich Eisen Show. So then, how do we corral this and make this fair, and not just for the student athletes, but for the competition, because this is the wild west here. You know what I mean? Where one town in Unforgiven, you can't bring guns in, and another town, it's not a big problem. You could do whatever the heck you want to come into this town. And so somebody that already has a big time college football or basketball program says we're in an NIL positive state, right? Yes. Where you could do whatever you want, and other programs don't. And then there's suddenly scheduling issues and league issues and conference issues and money issues, and then players will want to unionize.
Yes.
I mean, there will be somebody who's like, let's get you all together in a room so you can collectively bargain with the Pac-12, with the Big Ten. Yes. I mean, isn't that coming based on all of this?
We know college sports is a two-tiered system already. You can't compete with SEC football if you're some mid-major conference. But I think what you've identified is change is coming. And the problem with the NCAA, and I understand they have a tough job, but they're only reactive to 2 things, legislation and litigation. If not for those 2 L's, legislation and litigation, we'd still be in the 1960s.
But doesn't that describe every sports league in America, though? I mean,
and the lawyer for this case yesterday, the Alston versus NCAA case, as you know, is our friend Jeffrey Kessler. And Jeffrey's the prominent sports law attorney in the country. He's represented the NBPA, the NFLPA, the Tom Brady case, the U.S. women's soccer team.
He's a 4-letter word to many NFL
yes, he is.
Owners.
But he's still after it. And he'll be that guy. When Brett Kavanaugh says, bring it on, he'll be that guy.
To bring it.
To bring it. And he wants it all. What he wants is take all the restrictions off. Let the free market decide. Now, would that mean that Trevor Lawrence was going to make several $1 million if that was the case to join a school 4 years ago? Probably. Where would that money come from, and what would it restrict? And there's my confliction, if that's a word, because then we're talking about what about all the minor sports? The money's got to come from somewhere. And Jeff would say to that, and I've had him interviewed on my podcast. He said, "Well, I would."
Kessler, you're referring
Jeffrey
to?
Kessler would say to that, well, they can just pay the Nick Sabans $10 million instead of $12 million, or they can not have water slides at Clemson, or they can not have Normatec boots by every locker. But then you get back to the arms race, because if Clemson's doesn't do it, someone else will. So this is where college sports has become, as I keep saying, this two-tiered system. You have college sport, basketball and football at a level that's unbelievable. And I have, Villanova, we're big time. They're telling me what Kentucky's doing, what North Carolina's offering. I'm like, oh my God, we got to compete with that because you want to get the best players. It's all about the players.
So what next?
What next?
I mean, sir, so because it takes a while for someone to bring it to the Supreme Court, and is the NCAA at least realizing that, or Congress realizing that something needs to be codified and then set in stone, and the NCAA does not appear to be the organization that should do it or has the capacity to do it, to figure this out, like get smart people in a room to figure out what this construct is, because the last thing you want is the Supreme Court to make a ruling and then all of a sudden the next day, recruiting season's open. Right? I mean, so what happens next?
So I mentioned
Andrew?
2 words, legislation, litigation. The litigation we just talked about. Legislation, we talked about the 6 states. There are more to come for NIL, maybe even before July 1. And then you get to federal. So federal, we've seen bills. Cory Booker's got a bill. Marco Rubio's got a bill. Anthony Gonzalez, former NFL player's got a bill. It's bipartisan. Mm-hmm. It's politically popular, whether you're Republican or Democrat right now.
We saw 9-0 in the Supreme Court.
Oh my God.
How often do we see that?
And the conservatives were most vigilant for student athletes. So I think one of these bills will coalesce. Now, will it be a bill that the NCAA likes? Like the Rubio bill seems written by the NCAA. Or will it be a bill like the Cory Booker bill, which goes way beyond NIL into health benefits and pension, like all the collective bargaining stuff? We'll see. That will be something to watch now. Before we get to the next Brett Kavanaugh bring it on Supreme Court case, I think we'll have a national bill. And even with everything swirling around in this country, it has taken on momentum. There's all these swirling bills in Congress. And Joe Biden has given a modicum of support towards getting this done as well.
Well, here's one thing I don't want, because I do want athletes to get what they deserve.
Yeah.
And I do want somebody who blows his or her knee out in a sophomore year and have the trajectory that could wind up professionally blown out. And I do want health care, and I do want something set up for athletes. I do want that. What I don't want, and I don't think anybody else who might agree with what I just said wants, is to have, where you're using the Trevor Lawrence name because he's as famous and as generationally talented as an amateur athlete is, or we've seen in Zion. I don't want to see those guys go to a school and then become a free agent for other schools in the middle of their eligibility. I don't want to see that professionalized environment in the collegiate level.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's possible, right? Like where you sign a letter of intent, there's no transfer portal, or you can't use the transfer portal to get more money from another school, right? Can you see something like that's? I'm already seeing like that could be the way this eventually winds up going. Certainly when you do have a generationally talented person to basically say, well, coach, you pissed me off. Screw you. I'm in the transfer portal and I'm willing to take one more year of eligibility and go somewhere else. Right? I mean, don't you think something like that could happen?
I mean, this is the debate, and I've been on some committee discussions with the Big East Conference where, let's talk NIL. What is the value of the name on the jersey? So if a player on Duke or Villanova or Alabama or Clemson makes X in NIL, what would he be making if not for the name Clemson, Duke, Villanova, et cetera? This is where it's hard to quantify the value. Now, listen, Zion, not Trevor Lawrence because there's no option, but Zion could have gone G League for $100,000 or whatever the max was, $200,000, but he chose Duke because Duke has incredible brand value. So when we start talking about brands and value, you really have a hard job extricating value from the brand, the college, and value of the athlete. Will there be a free agency system? I don't think we'll get to that, Rich, but I do worry, as you do, that with more rights, it becomes more professionalized. And, we see G Leagues, we see other leagues pop up over time. That's probably the future. But if you choose to go to college, you're choosing something different than that.
You had a front row seat to Favre's drafting and Rodgers drafting and the end of the Favre regime there. What's your recollection of Rodgers in the Jordan Love role? back then. What's your recollection of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've told the story, and we did this a couple of weeks ago, taking Aaron when he felt us. All the guys we had rated in first-round grades were gone except for one, and all the combustion in the room, whether it take a guy that wasn't going to help us right away. Obviously, we did. He came in. It was a little bit frosty having, the two guys well. We have California cool, Aaron, and Southern Mississippi country, Brett Favre. And Brett was making comments, I'm not going to mentor, it's not my job. I think one of the things I feel best about is over those 3 years, those guys' relationship did warm, and it warmed to a nice level. Obviously, Brett retired, he came back, it was messy, divorce, but before that, those two really did start getting along well. Aaron was a backup quarterback. Aaron was a young guy coming into Green Bay from California. He babysat my kids, he was dating a local girl in Green Bay. It was just a different kind of experience. Being a backup quarterback to, of course, where he is now is a completely different level. Wry sense of humor, never seemed to take anything too seriously. As you've seen, just has a nice way about him to just be calm, relaxed. And when that whole storm went in 2008, when Brett came back, Aaron was as cool as a cucumber. He really just stayed the course, stayed on task. And he had the emboldened nature of the organization saying, we're not going back. You have the keys to this franchise. And yes, 16 years, Hall of Fame, best player in history of the team was coming back wanting his helmet. And, I told you that day that Mike McCarthy told Brett those 3 words, we've moved on. That was poignant.
Did you know he was going to say that?
Yeah.
You did?
No, we had moved on.
You had moved on.
And what Jordan Love is going through right now is what gave us so much confidence about Aaron. In the off seasons of 2006 and 2007, we saw Aaron run the team. Brett stayed in Mississippi, as he does during the off season. Off seasons then were different. And Aaron ran the team. And I had guys coming up to us, Greg Jennings and James Jones and Donald Driver, like,
this kid can play.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know this kid can play. I remember I was telling the story about when he came out on that night in Dallas when Favre versus Romo and
that was electric. Yeah.
It was electric, and one team was undefeated, another team had just one loss.
Yeah, we were one.
Yep, and Favre got hurt, and Rodgers came out. And we're like, well, that's the end of that game, and the game didn't go Green Bay's way, but
he played well.
It was me, Mooch, Marshall Faulk, and Sterling Sharp in the end zone watching Rodgers work. And after every throw, we would look at each other and go, oh my gosh. Like, holy crap, he can play. Can he? It was a remarkable
He came in that draft week. We had the mini camp, as everyone does, right at draft week. And he came in first player, first series. He rolls right, hits Donald Driver in stride like 65 yards. Ted Thompson, who had no reactions to anything his whole career, locked eyes. Somehow we locked eyes. And he gave me that look like, we're good. Like, we're good. Like, we're good for the next 15 years. And the whole idea of taking Jordan Love, of course, the Packers fans, I say this in a positive way, they're the most spoiled fans in the history of the sport because they've had now 30 years of franchise quarterback play. And the whole idea of taking Jordan is to have 45 years of franchise quarterback play if he's the guy. But that is something, to have 30 years of that.
Andrew Brandt here on the Rich Eisen Show, former Packers front office executive. So what do you interpret the complicated fella comment from Mark Murphy and how that informs maybe the next several weeks and how this plays out? If at all,
I mean, listen,
Andrew.
There's a chasm, whatever word you want to use, a fissure between the Packers front office, which includes Mark, and Aaron. I don't know how deep, and I don't know what the real foundations of it are. I don't think it's taking Jordan Love. I think it's bigger than that, and I think it was before taking Jordan Love. You know, Mark, I think, just wanted to appease the group of season ticket holders or whatever high-rolling Packer fans that he was talking to, and just kind of threw that comment out. I don't take it as strategic. I don't take it as directed. I don't take it as some kind of plan to Aaron. Having said that, Rich, doesn't help. Doesn't help. I mean, and invoking Ted, who obviously passed away, and Ted didn't say much, but I'll say one thing about Ted. Ted realized his shortcomings. He was elite talent evaluator, picked Aaron, picked so many others. Picked Aaron against the world saying you shouldn't pick Aaron. But he was not a communicator. He relied on me, he relied on John Schneider, Reggie McKenzie to sort of communicate with agents, with players. So he didn't do that. You know, it seems, I don't know who it is. It seems Mark is the communicator between the Packers camp and Aaron's camp. It hasn't worked. I'm not sure if there needs to be another voice or if there is another voice. The frustrating part, as we all know, is everyone asks, what would you do? Well, I'd get in a room, I'd talk, close the doors, lock the bathrooms. But it seems they've done that. Mark's been out there. Matt's been out there. I mean, Brian Gutekunst's been out here. I'm sorry, in L.A.
Right, yeah, right.
Yet here we are. And the message they've given him, what sources have told me is, we love you, but, we scout, we manage, you play. And we're still at that kind of,
Do you think the complicated fellow, because we just heard, I'm trying to square all comments.
Yeah.
We just played again prior to this segment, Andrew Brandt. Aaron, albeit week 2, between weeks 2 and 3 of the NFL season, a lot happened, obviously, in the season and the way it ended with him coming off the field and Brady winning with a team that he just joined after 20 years. So he could see that going elsewhere isn't the end all of a career. It can actually be the birth of something new. But him saying that he was at peace with the way that he was playing football, he wasn't playing with a monster chip on his shoulder, he was at peace. Is it possible that everything that went down, he was at peace before the season, knowing this is the end of it, and that he is going to be the guy with the resolve to say, screw it, you're gonna mess with me, I will just keep going and I will sit at home. Enjoy Jordan Love at the Saints on Monday night against the Lions, against the Steelers on a Sunday night in San Francisco. Enjoy it. Yeah. You go for it. Like, could he be that guy?
He could. Listen, I don't think he will be, but I think he could. Here's the deal, Rich. I said the draft day of Jordan Love, I said 2 things I've never thought I'd say. Number 1, we have an expiration date on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Jordan Love will play. Aaron Rodgers will play 15 years ago. He is going to play. This idea that Jordan Love's going to be a backup or he's going to flip him for another first round. No. The only question is when, and I'm pretty sure the Packers' plan was 2 years. Aaron sat 3. 2 years. So in 2022, we turn it over to Jordan. Aaron's like, I was just MVP. You want me to do that again, get you to the Super Bowl, and then turn it over to the kid? I'm not down with that. What's in it for me? So I think it's about this control for the timeline. And I bet this feeling was like, just do it now, 2021.
Right.
And they don't want to do it now because the Jordan Love can't play now.
And the draft choices that they would acquire for Rodgers will only be improved.
Well, the story broke on draft day, but you wondered, like, are they going to get something done like right now? Because that was the value.
Well, there was also the cap would have been.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you could have made the trade then and then put everyone in bubble wrap to make sure they didn't get hurt before June 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's 2022, and that's what the Packers, I think, want. We're going to trade him in March of 2022, and he's like, let's just do it now. Or the bottom line is he going to sit? I don't see it.
How do people get your newsletter?
Andrew-Brandt.com. I just sort of want to do more content, more than my columns at Sports Illustrated, more than my podcast, direct people to some of the stuff I'm doing. It's been great. It's a way to me communicate access that you don't have otherwise. Andrew-Brandt.com.
Okay. Newsletter. And then your pod is?
The Business of Sports. Yeah, wherever you get your podcasts. It's good stuff.
And There Will Be Lawyers. Where did that come from?
Just put it out on Twitter one day, and it sort of took.
Because there's always going to be lawyers, Andrew. I mean, there will be lawyers.
There's one sitting in your chair right here. There will be lawyers. No matter what we talk about in sports and business, but sports even, there will be lawyers.
Well, and I appreciate you coming in to give us heads or tails about what happened yesterday in the Supreme Court. When do you think the next case can come? How quickly? because that's the time frame in which something needs to be either legislated or agreed to or hammered out. Like that's the clock that's now officially ticking from yesterday.
Yeah, Kessler's phone's probably ringing off the hook for the next case, but as you know, it's got to go through all the levels to get to the Supreme Court.
Correct.
The better option is going to be Congress. And then it's going to be what kind of bill legislates college athletics. And is the NCAA out? You know, where it becomes federal.
Of course. Well, deadline spur action.
That's another one.
Another one of yours.
I threw that out there.
That's what I'm saying. So how quickly can a case come, do you think? 2023? There's 2 years to figure this thing out?
I think that's basically the time frame, about 2 years. Meanwhile, college sports will have NIL. 6 states at least, maybe 10 by July 1st. NCAA's got to do something.
Wow.
More of these leagues, especially basketball, are forming.
With the NFL and the NFLPA have hammered out everything that we're seeing. They've already agreed to these things, right?
Yes.
So then what are they telling Cole Beasley from the Players Association to say that they're still working on it, that it's not official? Like Cole Beasley's saying that it's not. But it seems like it is, right?
It seems like it is. It seems like they're not telling you not to get vaccinated because they can't do that.
Right.
Or to get vaccinated,
right.
Excuse me. But they're isolating. They're isolating those who don't get vaccinated. It's like, we're going to put you in the corner until you're vaccinated. And the big issue to me, Rich, is that for Cole Beasley, Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, Josh Sweat, they've got job security. But, it's going to be logistically, how, like you raised before we were on, like in the room, out of the room.
If you're Josh,
Zoom.
if you are Josh Allen, he was concerned, questioning that as well. If you're a quarterback, and you now have to zoom into
the
meeting where all your fully vaccinated players are sitting there in a film room. We're watching this, and then there's your starting quarterback on a screen. Is that literally the way it may go?
I would think.
And what about a player who doesn't have job security?
That's what I worry about.
Would the Players Association file a grievance for a player who feels he's been cut because he hasn't been vaccinated?
I think good luck with that, because they agreed to these things. They agreed to these protocols. I mean, I know firsthand in August, those cut down days, and you're going to have 2, 3, 4 players equal. Well, this one's not vaccinated. Easy.
Done.
Yeah.
Out.
I mean, we're going to cut. We're cutting 30 guys in September 1st. Yeah.
So easy. A player who's on the bubble and doesn't want to see the Turk should see the vaccinator.
They're looking for reasons to cut guys because everyone's so close. It's it's a fungible team below the top 30. So, yeah, I worry about that with the unvaccinated players. So again, if Kirk Cousins and Josh Sweat and Cole Beasley, they're good, but they have to deal with these protocols. But, unavoidable politics. It's happening.
Andrew Brandt here on the Rich Eisen Show. Check out his work on the MMQB, the Business of Sports podcast, and his Sunday 7 newsletter. Thanks for coming on, brother.
My pleasure, Rich.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.